Hello and welcome to The Woven Word. This is a series of programmes in which we look at some of Ulster's writers and poets, largely a group known as the Weaver poets or rhyming weavers who flourished during the 18th and 19th centuries. These were ordinary working class poets, getting on with their everyday job but writing poetry as a hobby. And they were writing about everyday topics like fishing and farming and the weather and the church and their neighbours. So their poetry really shines a light on what it was like to live in Ulster at that time. Today we have come to the beautiful little fishing village of Ardglass on the Killough Peninsula in County Down. And we're going to be thinking about this man, Padraic Gregory. He loved Ardglass. This was where he used to come on holidays. He loved nothing more than fishing or wandering around the shoreline, being inspired by the landscape all around him. This episode has been filmed in 360 degrees. So that means that, like Padraic, you too can admire the landscape. If you're watching this at home, try moving your mouse about and you'll see that you can look left and right and up and down. Or for an even more immersive experience, put on a VR headset and it'll be as if you're standing right here with me on the rocks in Ardglass, feeling the sunshine on our backs, looking at all of the lovely sights around us and smelling the scent of this lovely Irish sea air. Let's begin by looking behind you. We've got a beautiful little marina here with some pleasure boats. I see a lovely white egret standing there fishing at the water's edge. Lovely blue sky leading up to the skyline there on your right-hand side. A very impressive building, built in the 12th century as the King's Castle. That has been restyled over the years and nowadays it's a very nice care home. There's a lovely little church up here with a graveyard, the gravestones all facing the sea. And here in the foreground you see the little Victorian bathing box. What have we got behind us? We have the village of Ardglass and over here all of the seagulls fluttering around the fishing boats in this busy little harbour. It's a beautiful, beautiful landscape. I can see why Padraic Gregory loved it so much. So let's think a little bit more about the man himself. Born in 1886 as Patrick Bernard Gregory, he later changed the spelling of his name to Padraic. His parents emigrated to America when he was just a boy, so he went with them to New York and later to Colorado, but he returned then and completed his education in Belfast. And by the time he was 20, he had set up an architectural practice. He was a very talented architect and you can see evidence of his hand and his design in buildings in Belfast like St Malachy's Church, St Mary's Chapel, even Garran Tower up on the Antrim Coast Road. But also at this time, when he was 20 years old, his passion began to grow for drama and literature. In fact, he was a founder member of the Ulster Theatre. What drove him was a desire to preserve the songs and ballads and poems and the rich vernacular speech of the north of Ireland. Like others before him, like Robert Burns, like George Francis Savage Armstrong, he gathered up snatches or fragments of old songs and he preserved them or he repaired them where there wasn't much left, and he wrote a lot of material of his own. His first collection, Ulster Folk, came out in the year 1912 with material in English and Scots, in Ulster-Scots and Irish words as well, all blended so seamlessly, so unself-consciously and naturally. He really is a magnificent talent, such an ear for rhythm and metre. Then, if you consider the time he was living in, those early years of the 20th century, his writing and his feelings became more political. And a tragedy occurred when his wife Madeline died, leaving him with two small children. And you see another change in the tone of his poetry at this time as it becomes more sentimental, almost more religious in nature as well. He always had a dream of having some of his songs set to music, so it must have been so pleasing, so gratifying when John Larchet set a beautiful poem, Padraic the Fiddler, to music, and it was performed by none other than the celebrated Irish tenor, John McCormick. Padraic continued to contribute to society. Before his death in 1962, he actually served as a governor of the BBC. And it was through my work in the BBC that I met Patrick Gregory, my friend and the grandson of Padraic. And it was Patrick who brought out this beautiful publication in 2013 with a lovely introduction and a foreword and a selection of his grandfather's loveliest ballads and songs and poems. It's a first-rate book. And as Patrick and I have discussed many times, these writings really need to be better known. There's historic ballads, there's contemporary ballads, there's folklore. And it's a folklore poem that we've chosen for this programme. My friend Jennifer Orr is going to read you the ballad O Teddy McShane. And this is a spooky old poem. It's set around Samhain, the old word for Halloween. And Teddy is a piper, and he plays the most wonderful tunes on his pipes. But where did he learn them? It said he learnt them from the fairy folk, and there's a terrible warning contained in this poem, as you'll hear. As Jennifer reads it, you're going to see the words on the screen, and listen out in particular for some lovely Ulster-Scots words. You'll hear scrake for the scrake of dawn. That's the screech, the cock-a-doodle-doo of a rooster, you know, the scrake. You'll hear folk talk, they spade, which means that they predicted. Young Teddy truckled with the Lochry men. He had dealings with the fairy folk. You'll hear someone pecked up the hill, he huffed and puffed. You'll see all of these words on the screen, as I say, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can expand the description. You can jump forward in the time code to a section where instead of the words appearing on screen, you can enjoy beautiful 360-degree panoramic photographs taken all around this gorgeous part of South County Down. Ardglass, so beloved, of Padraic Gregory. I really hope you've enjoyed this, and it'll inspire you maybe to get this book or to go online and find out more about a poet who deserves to be better appreciated today. Thank you.
The Ballad o' Teddy McShane by Padraic Gregory. Young Teddy McShane was a piper lad, and divil the piper could pipe wi' him, the hertin soil o' the hiring fairs, from the screek o' day till the gleamin' dim. And boys a dear, he could play that sweet, you'd swear a dozen young larks in tune were singing their blithest at dawn to coax the sun, to frighten the waning moon. But the oil folk said that he learnt his tunes at nicht time doon the Knock-a-Glen, and spade that naething but bad could come o' them that truckled wi' Lochry men. And mine, they were richt for a peddler man one nicht near hand at Sawentide, spied Teddy slipping along the road, gaunt, ghostly looking and hollow-eyed. And he a-playing a keen that sad, you'd a swore you saw the hosts o' Maeve a-marching by ye in stately step to pile the cairn our young Orloff's grave. And the peddler took till his heels and pecked the hole cut up from the Knock-a-Glen, and wakened the priest and told the folk the boy was awa with the Lochry men. And mumling prayers they all set out, the priest wi' water and book and bell, reciting his Latin along the road, for to save a soul from the deeps o' hell. They found poor Teddy at grey o' dawn, the deed hae lured away the deed. God save us all from the fairy folk. That was all that the old priest said. Sure the oil folk said that he learnt his tunes at nicht time doon in the Knock-a-Glen, and spade that naething but bad could come o' them that truckled wi' Lochry men. And mine they were recht for I've seen mysel, odd nights when near Hon Sawentide. A white thing passing along the road, gaunt ghostly looking and hollow-eyed. The Ballad o' Teddy McShane by Padraic Gregory. Young Teddy McShane was a piper lad, and divil the piper could pipe wi' him, the hertin soil o' the hiring fairs, from the screek o' day till the gleamin' dim. And boys a dear, he could play that sweet, you'd swear a dozen young larks in tune were singing their blithest at dawn to coax the sun, to frighten the waning moon. But the oil folk said that he learnt his tunes at nicht time doon the Knock-a-Glen, and spade that naething but bad could come o' them that truckled wi' Lochry men. And mine, they were richt for a peddler man one nicht near hand at Sawentide, spied Teddy slipping along the road, gaunt, ghostly looking and hollow-eyed. And he a-playing a keen that sad, you'd a swore you saw the hosts o' Maeve a-marching by ye in stately step to pile the cairn our young Orloff's grave. And the peddler took till his heels and pecked the hole cut up from the Knock-a-Glen, and wakened the priest and told the folk the boy was awa with the Lochry men. And mumling prayers they all set out, The priest wi' water and book and bell, reciting his Latin along the road, for to save a soul from the deeps o' hell. They found poor Teddy at grey o' dawn, the deed hae lured away the deed. God save us all from the fairy folk. That was all that the old priest said. Sure the old folk said that he learnt his tunes at nicht time, doon in the Knock o' Glen, and spade that nathan but bad could come o' them that truckled wi' Lochry men. And mine they were recht for I've seen mysel, odd nights when near hon sawin tide. A white thing passin' along the road, gaunt ghostly lookin' and hollow-eyed.